You're on the economy. Nobody sees it. They think, oh, all this and
Good
that,
evening.
the tax
I'd like to
cut.
call the
Listen.
Manchester Community School Board of Trustees meeting to order. Welcome. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we are kind of changing just the way information is went. You're going to see a different look to the agenda up there, and the purpose is just to make sure that we understand what we're doing for clarity and also just for efficiency. So, Teresa and I sat down and I was like, oh, I know how to do this, and now I'm kind of like, oh, what are we doing? So let's just bump through. Roll call. I'm not quite sure what you want me to do for that. All members are present, great. You can see the emergency additions are there, and we will approach those later under discussion. So we are at number 2, hearing of patrons. And is that, do you have a presentation here? These guys? Okay. Good evening. I'm Melissa Underwood, and I am the parent of Austin Underwood here. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about the work-based learning. He is in Miss Lifer's program, which is awesome. Shelley does a great job. She meets with the kids daily or once a week. But before school started, they had meetings with her about what they expected of them. They're not also going to a job site. They're representing the high school and our corporation. And I feel like all the kids that are in that do very well at that. The positive things about my son being in work-based learning. He is working at Pre-Med Tech, and it's right here in town. He gets hands-on, real-life learning experiences that aren't always available in the classroom setting. College isn't for everyone. He gets actual workplace training while still in high school. A long time ago when they had work-based learning, both of my other kids did it, and they weren't able to get paid. But Austin is able to get paid there, and it's not a lot, but I guess it is. I can't remember how much. But anyway, when he gets out of high school, he's going to work there full-time, and right now he can tell you a little bit about that. I'm not going to fill you in on that. But anyway, they didn't get paid, and now kids get paid if it's available. It helps him to learn life skills like being responsible for himself. He has to get up every morning on his own and be at work at 7 a.m. Let me tell you, this was a struggle at first, but he worked there during the summer, and he did very well. I mean, there was a few yelling, get up, hurry up. But he's learned that you got to do this, you got to be on time, you got to be on time. So he has to be there at 7 a.m. He usually leaves 20 or 25 minutes before. So he's being responsible with money. He earns it, so he manages it. He has his own bank account. He's responsible. And that's something that my other kids didn't have. So how to get along with coworkers and bosses. This is different than getting along with the fellow students and teachers. I feel like he's got a good relationship with the bosses there. They text each other if there's going to be a problem or if he can't be there. They're very, very flexible about if he can't be there that day. During the summer, there was a few times he had to help his dad on the farm, and they were very, very understanding. So just as long as he communicated with them, it worked out great. It also allows him to get his foot in the door at a local business with a good paying job, which will allow him to stay close to home after he graduates, which that's what we want. He wants to still work on the family farm. He already has animals that he has on his own,
And his dad and I want our children to stay here around Manchester because it's a great community. So that's why we love work-based learning. And now Austin's going to talk. Thank you.
Okay, like she said, I'm Austin. I work at PMT, which stands for Pre-Med Tech. We make screws. We don't make the actual implements for like artificial knees and elbows and stuff like that. But we make screws, screwdrivers, and like all the tools you'll need to put the implants in. We have, I think, 20 different companies that we make the screws for that they can put into the implants. I started out in quality, which is just measuring and making sure that the parts that are made on the precision machines are good to move on to the company, so they have good parts to make the implants. I was in that for the first, I just got off of it like 2 weeks ago, and I've been in there ever since last spring break of last year. So, but now they have me moved up to a machine, so I'm training on a Swiss, which is probably the biggest machine in the company right now. And so our company is growing, and so we are adding on, and we are adding 12 more Swiss machines and 3 more chuckers, which is just another type of precision machine. And so our company is growing, and so that means that the businesses that we are selling to are pleased with us and want to keep growing with us, so we're going to grow with them as they get bigger. It's like my mom said, it's a real good way to get your foot in the door for a job after you graduate if you don't want to move on to college like me. But companies like this, they're willing to put you through like a year of training / college classes at like Ivy Tech or like small colleges around here, just for some more training and background experience so like you can move up to be like an engineer or something, which is my goal later on and after a couple years of working on machines. So, thank you. Any questions?
Do you attend the Career Center?
No.
Okay, so
I'm just through Miss Leifer's class.
okay, and that's part of the pathways to graduation.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is work-based learning that doesn't involve the Career Center.
Yeah. Like my mom said, I go in at 7 and leave at 11. So I'm there for the morning half of the school day, and then I go to school the second half.
Thank you.
A few years before this, though, Mr. Hooks came to school and took Mr. Bullinger's place, and there were opportunities to take classes with him to get him started to go into this field. So he worked that way through that too also, instead of going to Heartland.
Any more questions?
What was your biggest challenge, Austin, so far?
So far,
Getting up at 7.
no. I'd say moving to the Swiss, like I said, it's the biggest machine. A lot of controls to learn and how to set up the machine for certain jobs, because we have to set the machine up every single time we get a new job.
Awesome. You guys doing something like changeover or setup training, or are they just breaking you in on the machine right now?
They're just breaking me on the machine right now. So far, I know how to change everything out, all the tools, and I don't know how to program the machine yet, but that will come later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Austin and Melissa. We really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. The next item is consent items. And so you can see on the agenda, there's several consent items that will be grouped together in a single motion. But what our practice in the past has always been to highlight the donations. And so we're going to go ahead and scroll down so that we have the donations up there. And there's many this month, and so I will read that just because we are so grateful for this. So we have a donation of $16.90 to the Squire Team Production Service Film Club from various donors. A donation of $14.88 to the After Prom program from the PTO and the MCS script program. There's a donation of $72.17 to Science Olympiad program from PTO, Sue Janegi script. There's a donation of $36.25 to the high school football program from Heather Schilling script purchase. A donation of $300 to the band program from Bit Computers for band shirts. A donation of $286 to the band program from Metzger Landscaping and Design for band shirts. Donation of $1,000 to the band program from an anonymous donor. There's a donation of $75 to the FFA program from an anonymous donor. A donation of $100 to the high school football program, cash from an anonymous donor. Donation of $25 to the football program from an anonymous donor. Donation of $100 to the football program from Jason Long Trucking. Donation of $100 to the junior high cheerleading program from Manchester Alive for FunFest Help. Donation of $250 to the junior high boys basketball program from Manchester Alive for FunFest Help. Donation of $250 to the varsity cheerleading program from Manchester Alive for FunFest Help. Donation of $250 to the wrestling program from Manchester Alive for FunFest trash pickup. Donation of $100 to the cross-country program for uniforms and equipment from Beacon Credit Union. Donation of $724 to the football program from Thorne Insurance Agency. Donation of $800 to the cross-country program for the 2019 cross-country invite from Three Rivers Running Company. Donation of $250 to the girls basketball program for summer camp t-shirts from Beacon Credit Union. Donation of $500 to the boys basketball program for summer camp t-shirts from Midwest Poultry Services. Donation of $100 to the boys basketball program for summer camp t-shirts from Hometown Media Incorporated. Donation of $1,456.50 to the to Manchester Junior Senior High School from Johnson Petroleum Incorporated Spirit Pump. Donation of $1,500 to the Athletic Department for TRC Spring Luncheon from Parkview Health. And a donation of $300 to Boys Basketball Program for summer camp t-shirts from Riverbend Farms. And I would just like to say wow, and we have such great support for our schools. So thank you for the donations. What I'm asking for now is a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
There's a motion by Mr. Turflinger to approve consent items. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mr. Espesat. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Yeah.
Our new, our recommendation for special ed, she just happens to be, could we recognize?
Please do.
Hannah Marisol. So this is Hannah Marisol. We're very happy to recommend her to our new special ed position. She is currently serving as an instructional aide position and has done just an outstanding job. And so we're looking forward to having her going into Mrs. Bright and retired this past month. So.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Glad to have you.
All right. The next section for recommendations for approval. Each of these items will need to be, will need a motion and a second if we choose to vote for approval. So the first item is approval of the TRF reduction amount and use.
Okay, this is in response to Budget Bill HEA 1001, Section 257, where $150 million were appropriated from the State General Fund to the Teachers' Retirement Fund, thus allowing schools to reduce their TRF payments for this year. So this bill required that after July 1, 2019 and before October 1, 2019, the governing body of each school corporation shall determine at a public meeting the following. 1, the dollar amount of the reduction. And our reduction would be $99,312.20. And then the actions the governing body of the school corporation intends to take with that amount prescribed in number 1. It would be my proposal that we would use this money to go towards teacher salaries for 2019, 2020.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Hensley moves to approve,
I'll second it.
and a second by Mr. Bedke. Is there any discussion?
Where does this money come from? Is this the state lottery?
No, this was a surplus that the state had that they put towards the TRF payments to
I know
reduce
the
that.
governor shifted, I just wondered the source,
So,
if you knew the source.
I
of
don't
it.
know the source.
Okay, rainy day. Thank you.
Jeremy, what is TRF?
The teacher retirement fund that was given to teachers.
Payments and they're giving it back?
No, the state used this surplus money that they had to reduce the amount that schools would have to pay into the teacher retirement fund for a 2-year period. So it is just for 2 years, and then after that, we'll see what happens. But, so this would be our reduction amount based on that.
And the when they did this, the state recommended that they use it for teacher salaries, is that correct?
Yeah, that was one recommendation that they had.
Thank you.
All right, so we had a motion from Mr. Hensley and a second from Mr. Bedke. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay, the Equitable Education Solutions LLC Consulting Agreement. You would have seen this in your board packet, and if you're in Google Drive, it's under the recommendations for approval folder. Did you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, I can just give you a little bit of information on it. It's a web-based professional development resource for administrators when they see maybe a teacher is struggling in a certain area. They can send them some information on it, have them do like a book study or something that it's got all the information right there. It's a great resource for our principals to be able to provide some professional development for their staff.
Is there a motion?
What does it cost? What's the?
The cost is $5,000 per year, but we are paying for it out of Title II grant.
How long is the term of the contract?
1 year at a time.
1 year.
So is this a resource mostly the principals would be using then, or?
The principals use it, but they'll use it to lead their staff in professional development or send specific links to, let's say a teacher's having difficulty in classroom management. It has numerous resources in there to help guide that teacher in that area. And there's book studies in there where they've already developed PowerPoint slides and all the questions that would go along. It's kind of a jump start for them to be able to have this resource. Then they are not trying to come up with all of it on their own. It's very difficult to do that. So yeah, it's just a great resource for them.
So the consulting is not an individual consulting, it's all web-based?
It's all web-based, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
So there's a motion to approve the long word for this. The Equitable Education Solutions Consulting Agreement. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mr. Esposito. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Approval of the field trip to Everglades National Park for February 20th through the 25th, 2020.
Yes, we're asking your permission. This has kind of become an annual thing. Mr. Burnworth's classes The environmental science class yearly takes a trip to the Everglades, become very popular. It's really kind of become part of our culture. I know many parents in here have their kids who have gone on this trip. It's a very successful trip, getting the kids actually out in the Everglades and living, really living the experience. It's something else. Now, I've never personally been on it, but I know the kids, it's been very, very popular and great deal of learning.
I move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Bedke. We have a motion to approve the Everglades field trip. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Flack. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. And then we have a motion to approve the German exchange field trip. Oh, did I forget youth basketball? Let's do youth basketball instead. Sorry, Missy.
Yeah, so each year about this time, and I know this is very popular in the area. I mean, our kids certainly look forward to this, but even kids in the surrounding area sometimes plug into this very popular program. This is the one that's run on Sunday afternoons. We have some coaches involved. We have a lot of moms and dads that volunteer their time to kind of help coach teams. It's really an awesome program. Just gives our kids, our younger kids, a chance to get their hands on a basketball, and in some cases we lower those baskets, and so it's been a really good program, and so we'd like to run that again this school year.
So moved.
A motion from Mr. Flack. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mr. Hensley. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor of approving the girls' youth basketball program? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Now let's look at the German exchange field trip.
Okay, so, there are some years that we don't have enough people, that we have a tipping point of like 8 students, and then once we get that, that allows us to go. This is a little different than your normal exchange, student exchange, where we might have students exchange for the whole school year. This gives our students a chance to get immersed in the German culture for 3 weeks, approximately 3 weeks, and then we flip. So our kids go to Germany, Hamburg, Germany. They stay with families, and then in return, those families send our families students, and it's just kind of a swap. Really good deal. There's a donor that's involved with this to kind of help to keep the cost low. Again, it's very unique to Manchester. It's kind of one of our pillars in the community. I know it's very well supported by the university, who has German world language classes. We don't offer German classes, but our students really get involved with this. So we're asking your permission to do this field trip again.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
A motion from Mr. Turflinger to approve the Germany exchange trip. Is there a second? Was that you, Mr. Flack? And a second by Mr. Flack. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lippy. All right, so the next item, the next section of our business is discussion information. And we're going to begin with a presentation by Baker, Tilly, and Ice Miller.
And while they get up and they get you some information, I'm just going to review what this is about. We looked at doing some things that are very necessary right now, which is the roof of this building and possibly a boiler at MES, if it just really depends on what the bids come in like for the roofing. So that's what we're looking at. Okay, we'll let Belvia take over.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Belvia Gray. I'm with Baker Tilly. I have Jason Tanzel with me, and he's passing out to the board paper copies of the presentation in case you want to have the paper in front of you. So tonight, we're just giving the board information on a bond issue of $995,000 that would be used for the projects that Dr. Rameau just described. And this first slide here shows the school corporation's current outstanding debt picture with debt repaid through 2026. And it's anticipated that with the proposed bonds that we would just be looking at repayment over and above where current levels are. And so you'll see that in the next couple of slides. We just have a table showing what the proposed repayments would look like. Page 3 has the same information on the school's debt picture, but just all of the numbers, which is very small, I know, for the audience to see up there, but the board has the detail in front of them. Slide 4 has a calculation of the school corporation's general obligation borrowing capacity. Every taxing unit in the state has an amount of indebtedness that it can borrow in its own name. And that calculation changes every year based upon 2 factors. One is the school corporation's most recent net assessed valuation, and the other piece of that is taking into account any outstanding general obligation debt and what the principal amount that is remaining on those bonds. So currently, the school corporation's net assessed valuation is around $398 million, and then you can see it's divided by 3 and multiplied by 2. Those are statutory and constitutional reasons why those for the calculation. So the GO debt limit is $2.6 million. We're deducting from that $105,000 for your pension bonds, which are still outstanding. So your current borrowing capacity in the school corporation's name is $2.5 million. We did look, and the school corporation's 2020 assessed value looks like it's going to be right at $400 million, so assessed value has remained stable at least from 19 to 20. The next couple of slides then show the proposed repayment of a $995,000 general obligation bond. And for purposes of discussion tonight, we showed repayment terms of 5, 6, and 7 years. We could look at different repayment terms, shorter or longer, if provided direction to do so. On this table, we're showing the estimated interest expense, the maximum annual payment, and the tax rate calculated based upon those maximum payments. We've used an assumed interest rate of about 3%, and that is about 70 basis points or 0.7% higher than where rates are today, where market rates are. The next slide then shows the anticipated, or the estimated rather, tax impact for each of those repayment terms. So a 5-year borrowing has a tax impact of just over 5 cents, 6 years is 4.4 cents, and a 7-year repayment is 3.8 cents. So as you're repaying the bonds over a longer period of time, the tax impact is going to decrease, but you're paying a little bit more in interest expense. So really, part of what we would do if the board decides to move forward is to provide to ICE Miller, who would serve as bond counsel, provide them with parameters that will provide the school with some flexibility while you make a decision on what repayment term you want to look at. Looking at, we have impact on various types of homeowners. The top half of the page has impact on homes, and you can see, I'll just take the line with the median home value of about $98,300. That is the home value. The net assessed valuation that's in that next column, that is the assessed value that takes into account all of the deductions and exemptions that are available to those types of properties. So that home is paying taxes on $31,645. So you can see that the annual tax impact can range from roughly $12.20 up to $16.70, or on an annual basis or on a monthly basis in the dollar range. And the reason we show it on a monthly basis is because a lot of times homeowners will pay their property taxes through their escrow, so that's why we show that on a monthly basis. Moving down to the bottom, we're showing that per $100,000 of commercial and rental property, the range of tax impact would be between $38.60 to a little under $53. For an acre of farmland, which we always show the base rate, so that doesn't take into account the productivity factors that are applied, based on the most recent base rate of $15.60, 1 acre would range from 60 cents to 82 cents on an annual basis. And you can see how that, for 100 acres of agricultural lands, gets multiplied out. Are there questions from the board on the financials before I turn it over to Eric? Yes?
How big of an impact would it be for our citizens who do not have a mortgage? We have a lot of people here that are already retired and have already paid for their property, so they don't have a mortgage deduction. I mean.
So that's a good question. So those types of properties, the only adjustment that, the mortgage deduction is $3,000. So that would be a change to that. So this does include that $3,000. And there are certain types of homeowners who are over age 65 who are, there's a different type of circuit breaker that is eligible to them. So if they own their home and are still claiming a homestead credit, they just wouldn't get that $3,000 credit. So we could, if you wanted us to, we could show you what the impact of that would be. But it's a $3,000 impact. Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's in terms of the net assessed valuation. So then that's how, when you do the tax rate impact, that's how that changes. Any other questions for me?
You said that was about a 3% loan?
Yes, so when we put together numbers to talk to the board, we put together a higher, we use more conservative interest rates to establish maximum parameters. So yes, to run it, we use 3% interest rate, but based upon where we are currently, we're at about a 2.3-ish% on bonds. Mm-hmm.
Would that be fixed or is that variable?
It would be fixed.
Okay.
Yep.
And how long can you, extending that out beyond 7 years, can we still get fixed?
Yes, you can actually pay debt up to 20 years. One of the things that we normally just encourage you to look at is the useful life of whatever improvement you're making versus what the repayment is. So right now, the school has repayment through, your debt repayment through 2026. So I think that's why we looked at up to a 7-year repayment to just match it to what your current debt structure looks like. But with the type of improvement you're looking at, that presumably would have a longer life than even what we're showing here.
How many schools in the state do you work with that fund roof repair in this manner?
Oh, man, a lot. I mean, roof repairs, HVAC, those are the most common types of improvements and repairs that I think we work to provide bond funding for. It's very, very common. I'm not sure that I work on very many projects that don't have some sort of component of that included.
I have another question.
Get it up there.
Mm-hmm.
We have estimates. One was $675,000 for the roof with a 30-year, no proration, no questions asked warranty. The other one was about $40,000. I don't have it in front of me, less, but with only a 20-year warranty. Same materials from 2 different contractors. Do you have any idea how much it's going to cost, or Jeremy, for the boiler? My concern is doing a roof tear off at say $675. Is there going to be enough left over to do a boiler at borrowing $1 million?
Well, that's what we talked to them about. That's why the whole thing is kind of up in the air about whether we could do the boiler or not. But from my understanding, we can leave that off even almost to the last minute.
Yes.
Once we get that information. So we're not stuck with that amount. It could actually drop.
Right, yeah, so
Based
you would
on
be.
whether we can do the boiler or not.
Yep, exactly. Eric can talk about this, but we would be establishing a maximum borrowing amount. And so after you get bids in, if bids fit within what the borrowing amount is, then you can proceed with both. If not, you can make a choice at that point in time and then still borrow for all or a portion of it, or none of it.
Would we have the ability to raise it? Raise the amount if we wanted to do both?
It depend, well, if you decided you wanted a larger borrowing amount now, yes. But we would need to have authorization to have a higher borrowing amount, and then we could come down from that. So to your point, if you think it might be $50,000-$60,000 more, if it takes it over $1 million, you absolutely have, general obligation borrowing capacity to do that, and then you could come down from that, but you wouldn't be able to exceed the borrowing amount without going through process again.
Because I have no idea what a boiler costs. I got a pretty good handle on what a roof's gonna cost, but I have no idea what a boiler's gonna cost.
Yeah, I used the quote from Barton Co. that they had on the boiler, and so that fit into this $995,000 that we were looking at for the roof and a boiler if we chose to do a boiler.
Say that one more time.
We used the dollar amount of the quote that Barton Co. had given to replace a boiler as part of this figure that they're showing tonight. And then the lower roof amount quote, which was actually the longer warranty than the higher amount one was, so.
Okay, but we're talking about doing it, we're using the tear-off quote, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Grimeau, Mr. Markham. My name is Eric Long with Ice Miller, and it's a privilege to be here this evening to talk to you about the proposed timing for a general obligation bond issue. First off, if anyone's wondering why another lawyer is standing here before you, where I come into play, where our firm, Ice Miller, comes into play is kind of a niche practice with respect to the issuance of municipal bonds, aka municipal securities. So it's a little bit of state law, a little bit of federal tax law, a little bit of securities law, and we view our role as that being in concert with your general counsel and with your other working group members like your municipal advisor, to the extent we have direct communication with an architect or engineer, et cetera. So that's kind of our role is walking through that process together. So before you, we have a proposed timeline for, again, what would be the issuance of a general obligation bond, as Bellevue mentioned a moment ago. One thing I want to say at the outset is on the presentation that she showed previously, she talked about general obligation bond capacity. We kind of view that as an analogy would be like a line of credit. So right now, as of this moment, you have approximately $2.5 million of general obligation bond capacity. So to the extent you go through an issuance of about $1 million for this general obligation bond issuance, you still would have another approximately $1.5 million in capacity for future projects should any kind of emergency need arise. You know, if another boiler or chiller went kaput, or if any other needs arose. And as you pay that back over time, those principal amounts that get paid back add back to your capacity. So just to kind of rephrase what Bellevue said, the two things that affect that are your net assessed valuation. So as that rises, your overall capacity will rise, and as you pay portions back of other general obligation type bonds, that will also add to your ability to do these kinds of issuances. Looking at the timeline, I just kind of want to look at it at a high level, not necessarily go through step by step, but to the extent anyone has questions on any particular item, I'm glad to answer that. Kind of highlighting on what are the red items before you on this timeline, that's basically the board action. With this kind of a bond issuance, with it being a general obligation bond, as opposed to a financing type process, which you guys have undertaken in years past, as recently as 2016, it's fairly straightforward relative to that. So really, we're just talking about 2 months worth of board action. So tonight, obviously, is just an informational meeting, no action to take, you're just receiving information. After that, you're looking at preliminary action at your October board meeting and what we call final action at your November meeting. And to your question earlier, sir, at what point are we establishing kind of maximum parameters? That would be really by the October meeting when we're setting those preliminary bond resolutions. That's kind of setting the maximum borrowing amount, the maximum interest rate, et cetera. And so by that time, we'd want to have a good idea, really, I don't want to say necessarily locked in, but we want to have a good idea as to what the total cost is gonna be for, it sounds like both the roofing piece and the boiler chiller replacement, to the extent you have good bids or good word from architect, engineer professionals and what those can be. You've got a little bit more time to kind of have a little bit more discussion on that front. So preliminary action in October, final action in November, and then once all the legal resolutions are done, once all those notices have been published to the community for the hearings that are gonna take place, we're proposing a bond sale right before Thanksgiving. Belby and Jason can tell you why they want that to have happen. The investing community kind of goes to sleep for the holidays, so it's a good competitive environment just prior to that. And under this proposed timeline, you'd have money in the bank around the beginning of December, December 12th or somewhere thereabouts. So that's kind of the summation of the timeline, and I'm welcome to answer any questions.
I'm not sure whether to ask you the question or Dr. Grimeau, but there's a place where we can invest money, put it in, take it out with, what's the name of that we talked about?
There's a couple of them, Hoosier Fund, and what was the other one? Indiana Trust.
So we're gonna get this money in December, but we can't put a roof on, so we could actually take that, put it in there and make some extra, right? I mean, we're gonna have $1 million sitting there. Can we put it in there?
That would be a question for you.
Yeah, to some extent, yes. The folks at Baker Tilly can help a lot with that as well. They do a lot of cash management. The one thing I will say is what we monitor from a legal perspective is what we call arbitrage. So when the bonds are sold, there's a calculation done, and there's an arbitrage yield limit. Let's just say for today's argument that it's 2%. By federal tax law, you can't invest in anything greater than that 2% arbitrage limit. So we have to look at making sure it's properly restricted that way. If the case ever happened where you were earning too much money, you'd have to go through what's called a rebate process and give some of it back to the IRS. So that's what we monitor from a legal perspective. But there's also a cash management perspective from looking at how you can maximize those dollars and get up to that arbitrage yield limit as much as possible. And it's actually, for the first time in a couple of years, it's actually happening for school clients.
Thank you.
Any other questions pertinent to the timetable or anything of that matter? Okay. Well, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then the next portion here under the discussion information are several policies that this is the first reading of. So I believe, if I'm understanding correctly, first reading does not mean that we're going to read it aloud, but that you have read it and this is an opportunity for discussion. So the first one that we're going to look at is P1200, exercise of home rule powers.
Yes, and let me just say really quickly, because we're going to have some policies coming through, that when it's listed as a P, that means policy. If it's listed as an AG, that means it's administrative guidelines. That means the procedures that are designated in the policy for the administration to develop. That's what an administrative guideline is. And then if it says F before it, that means it's a form that goes with that policy. So just so you know when you see those numbers what they are. But if you look at the home rule powers, all of these actually are given to us by ISBA and recommended policies. And we found that we were missing some of these, so that's why we're bringing them to the board. But the home rule powers is just very briefly is just making sure you're having an open meeting, you have public input. You have a discussion item one meeting, and then you may bring it back for approval on the next meeting. Add more if you would like. Okay. Any questions on it?
All right. So because this is a discussion item, we're not going to take a motion and act on it, but my understanding is next month it will be under action items that we'll do. All right. So the next one is policy 2140, disclosure of student list.
Okay. We cannot disclose directory information if it is to a commercial organization, but we have to if it's included for the armed forces, and that's just a policy stating that.
Other questions?
What about employee lists? Do we have a policy on that, or would that be included on this? I mean,
I would have to look that up because I don't know off the top of my head.
okay.
All right. Are we okay with that one then? Okay, then let's look at policy 3090, reporting of suspected child abuse and neglect.
This law was changed a couple years back that it used to be you would report it to an administrator and then an administrator would report it to the child abuse hotline. However, that has changed. If you see it, you report it. So that just needs to be updated in our policy to reflect that.
Questions or discussion?
Is there any intersection with this and the 24-hour service deal we don't have a policy for yet? The internet protection,
Oh,
The
the
monitoring.
securely one? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, will this intersect with that? If you get an email or one of these get an email and,
Like if like
or
it's
in other
a
words, I'm asking, are
self-harm
we gonna
kind
do a
of
separate
thing?
policy or are we gonna build off of that? I'm just kinda wondering where we're going with that whole thing.
We actually have been discussing that, and we're gonna work on our next cabinet meeting to develop that policy.
Perfect.
It might look a little bit different than this, so.
Okay.
Did she answer your question, or
Yeah.
is it gonna intersect with this? I mean, if,
Probably not. It'll probably be its own policy because it's that particular program we're looking at. If you're asking if someone reports a self-harm, yes, then they're gonna call it in to the hotline, if that's what you're asking.
so this would pertain if, in other words, an administrator gets an email and says, my stepfather's beating me, then that administrator,
Correct,
okay.
yes.
Any other discussion? Do you have more questions, Mr. Turflinger?
Thank you.
The next one, you can see this is a policy 3190 withdrawal from school, and there's also a form, the F3190 that goes with it.
And it's pretty self-explanatory that if a student wants to withdraw, there are 3 reasons that they can do that, but they do need to interview with the principal of the high school or the junior high. And there is a form they have to have filled out and signed, and also, I believe, witnesses as well.
Questions or discussion?
What's the repercussions if they don't?
Good question. You mean if they just drop out and,
Yeah, I was just trying to, the purpose of the policy is to get feedback information, or is it state?
it's,
Is it
I mean, all
legal?
of these are, by law, we're supposed to have these into policy. That's what we were told by ISBA.
Okay.
So, I would assume you would turn them over for a truancy and they would have to handle it from there.
All right, thank you.
I have one quick question. If they do this in the middle of the year, we've already received the money from the state, do we have to send it back, or are we doing anything to try and stop them from doing this?
Well, that's what the exit interview is for. The form is to be able to have the time that that principal or the guidance counselor, someone can sit down with them and try to counsel them out or away from that. But usually, if you look at the policy, it's because of student hardship. So, yeah, they're absolutely, that's the reason we have the administrator sit down with them.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then let's take a look at the policy 6210, use of metal detectors, and along with that goes the administrator guideline 6210.
Yes, and I tried to get Officer Birch here this evening. He was not able to make it. I did have a request for a demonstration. He wouldn't be able to provide that for you until the next school board meeting, so he is willing to come at that time. But the recommendation that I'm giving you, I know it's been brought to the table a couple times, and you can discuss which direction you want to go. but I'm only looking at recommending reasonable suspicion, and any search would be conducted by the SRO and not by our administrative staff.
Questions or discussion? I feel much more comfortable with this policy than what we were looking at before. Policy, or are we, oh, go ahead, sorry.
It says individualized reasonable suspicion. So we're talking about an administrator, a principal, a teacher that has that. We're not talking about, because I know we have this anonymous phone line, email, where you can, my concern is students using this to bully another group of students. But I'm guessing that this right here under the guideline, metal detector checks of individual students, that the individualized reasonable suspicion, that's where you're covering that?
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there more discussion or more questions? All right, then let's go ahead and move on. We have the administrator guidelines 5100 for field trips.
Yes, in our board policy, it stated that there was going to be some procedures established by the superintendent. Those were not readily available, so we developed these based on previous field trips, kind of have guidelines there. And if you note what it says, all overnight or out-of-state field trips must be approved by the board. However, the other field trips that are in-state and during the day would be approved by the superintendent.
You have any questions or discussion on this?
I would like to see something in the guideline, not necessarily to where that number would cause a trip to get canceled, but some kind of a guideline, the number of chaperones versus the number of students.
Missy, is it at the bottom of that one? I believe I added that, and I based it off of going, oh,
Yeah,
it's
it
not.
says student to chaperone ratio
Well-
recommendations. On mine it does.
Sorry.
If you look through the one in Google Drive, it's on
Yeah, I
there.
added that after you had asked me to do
it's
that.
it's not on this.
And it's
printed
pre-K
one.
to 2, 1 to 10, grades 3 to 6, 1 to 12, and 7 through 12, 1 to 14.
Oh, it's on the Google, okay.
And those were based off of, I did some research on area schools to see there wasn't much out there. So just kind of went off of past experiences. If it needs to be adjusted, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Could I ask how the administrators feel about that? Good? I mean, the whole purpose, right, is to not go through that every time on a request and just have that information. Good, thank you.
Is everybody okay? Can we move on?
Cozy little crew over there, aren't they?
All right, so next time those policies, that exact same thing, will come back to the board, only they'll be under consent, or they'll be under action items, and we'll approve them. And there'll be new policies for first reading, just because we are trying to make sure that it's all up to par. So thank you for your time on that. All right, ISBA Comprehensive Policy Management.
Yes, Mr. Markham and I have been looking at this almost since I've come on board, and I found out we have some gaps in our board policy. ISBA is now offering a service for us to work with them closely, and they have recommended policies, and they will help us fill in those gaps, and it's a $700 a year cost to us. We would appreciate the board allowing us to do that through our operations funds and be able to get that help that we needed to be able to get our board policy where it needs to be.
I would just add that they will, with that, they will also send us quarterly updates to changes in policies, so that we'll get those. They'll also give us recommended policies, so that we don't have to come up with it on our own, but they'll give us sample policies that we can utilize with that as well. and consultation and questions that we may have for them, we're able to do that without being charged a fee. So.
And I think one of the most important things is the new legislation that comes around. That's always popping up, so we need to keep, up to date on that.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, did they come in and do a gap audit at first then for us, or is this all
He could probably-
emails, or are they physically putting bodies here, and what's the cost?
It's $700 a year, and basically a lot of it can be done on the phone or email.
Okay.
But what we are missing currently in our policy provided by state and federal law, Mr. Michael had contacted them when he was here, and so the policies that you're seeing are a product of what they said we were missing at that time and what they've supplied us. So as we continue this process to build the board policy and get it where we want it, there'll be other gaps. And like Dr. Grimeau said, with the state changing legislation yearly, we would get those updates and ISBA's recommendations on what those policies should look like in our board policy yearly with this fee.
Do they provide Mark with information as well, as far as the legal?
I can get that.
You get, good.
So they're not going to review all of our policies for $700. They're just going to, if we ask for something, or if something changes in the law, they're going to notice.
Correct.
Notify us.
And they'll, if we want them to create something specific, they'll do up to 15 policies a year. And then if there's more than that, then it's like a $50 fee for each additional policy.
We'll have to max that 15 out.
As well.
No, it's not a motion. I think what you're really wondering is if the board supports it.
If the board supports it, and we could either, you could approve it now, or we can wait till next month to do it, but the sooner the better, we would appreciate that.
I think that I'm wholeheartedly support it. I can't read the rest of the board to know if we want to go ahead and move forward and give them that to do tonight.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve it. How about that?
Okay.
No, I'll second it.
So we have a motion by Mr. Hensley and a second by Mr. Turflinger. Do we have further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. All right, and now we're going to have a Service Heartland and Pathway Immersion presentation. How's that for a title from the guidance department? Oh, okay.
That wasn't it?
Okay. So we're going to talk, a lot about the graduation pathways, because that's kind of the starting point for where we're going in high school. And we're going to be talking even about from elementary on up through graduation. I'm Lacey Wise, and I'm one of the high school counselors, and then Jody Metzger, she's the other high school counselor. We each have grades 8 through 12, and I have the end of the alphabet, and she has the beginning. So when this first came out about 1.5 years ago, that's where we all were, and it was a scary place to be, and we didn't know what we were doing. And we feel pretty good now, but if you just look at this kind of chart, this is one that we tried to show the teachers when it first came out. Because it really was kind of mind-blowing, and it really did the state kind of threw this pathways on everybody and said, hey, we're going to do this, and then they said, surprise, if you want to, you can start doing it now, which was last year. And so the board last year, you guys, we did a short presentation, and you guys approved us to use the graduation pathways last year, which was fantastic because we had a lot of kids that graduated using that as opposed to the I-STEP. So currently right now, with the current, it's the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, we are they're still in that.
Hey, Lacey, I'm really sorry to I'm right here,
Sorry.
interrupt you, but you need to use the mic
I'm
for the
sorry.
recording later.
Okay.
Okay.
So for the 10th,
Take it
11th,
off, can't you? If you want to walk a little bit, you can take it off.
You can pretend like you're a rock star and everything.
For the 10th. Okay, no, you don't want that. Okay, so for the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, we're still living in this dual world where they can do one or the other. So after the current 10th graders take iStep this year, then no other class will take iStep their 10th grade year like they have been doing. So you can kind of see from the flow chart, if they pass iStep, they're done. They've met their graduation requirement. Of course, they still have to get their credits so that they can graduate with their diploma, but they also have to meet that. If they do not pass iStep, then that's where we are taking a look at them. We get those scores back at the beginning of their junior year, and then we take a look at their scores. And if a student is very close to passing iStep, they're going to take iStep again because they're really close to passing, and they probably will after another year. Some students, they're not very close to passing iStep, and so that's where we really look at, are you getting an academic honors diploma? Most of those kids, they passed iStep, so that's really not been the big one that we look at. But then if you haven't passed and you're not getting an honors diploma, then how can we get you on a pathway? And so you heard Austin Underwood talking about his work-based learning. That is one of the pathways that you can use. There's a lot of pathways, but all of the Heartland Career Center classes, those are ones that fall under those pathways. So trying to encourage kids, hey, if you want to go to Heartland, it also meets your graduation requirement. We do require them because you have to have a C- or better in those classes. So if they're a junior and they're attending right now, we do require them to take iStep one more time, just in case. If they do not meet the C- grade average, then they are still eligible for a waiver for iStep, which you can see eventually it all comes down to, C- or better, no, then they can still get an iStep waiver. But again, this is all just for the next 3 years. It's kind of this double world. So for those of you that weren't around, a year ago, and maybe didn't know we now have 2 different ways to graduate, that's kind of what it's looking like right now. So this is the pathways, and just so you know, the current freshmen and younger, this will be the only way as of this moment in time that they're going to allow them to graduate. And so they're lovingly referred to as buckets. And the top one is the diplomas, and that has not changed. It's the same credits, the same classes, everything is the same. Bucket 2 here, demonstration of employability skills. I'll show you a list here in a little bit of the ones that we have come up with as Manchester schools of what students can use. This one's really easy. Most students have met it and they're not even trying. And then bucket 3 there, that's the harder one. And any of those, as long as they meet one of those, then they fulfill that 3rd bucket. The big one for us last year, this year, the next year, is that CTE concentrator one. That's the one that really, the majority of the kids using this, they have met it utilizing that, which would include the Heartland classes, work-based learning, any of our CTE classes. They fall into a pathway. And so we've been meeting with them at least when they're a junior to make sure that they have courses in their schedule that will fall into one of those. So if they don't pass the iStep, then they can at least get that. So this is our box 2 for Manchester. What we did is we had one of our Wednesday morning meetings where we brought this out, our list of our ideas of things that would meet these. And we had teachers sit together and go through them, and if they felt like, okay, hey, I've got this, we do this activity, Science Olympiad, I feel like it would meet this area. Then we looked at the definition of each one of those areas. They're at the top. And we've made this list. Then when students come in and they're meeting with us about graduation requirements, we can go through and say, okay, what have you met? If you haven't met something, you really need to. Most of our students have jobs. And so it's been very, very easy. They've already met it and they didn't even know they were meeting it. But so this one is pretty easy for them. Something coming soon, as I talked about, the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, they're all in both worlds of the pathway and the ISTEP. However, the state, they decided that they wanted to change and have a third way. So the current 9th graders and younger, they changed the graduation pathways already. And so the biggest change that they made was with the CTE concentrator courses, which is the one that we use the most of, so that was pretty rough. But they did take away a lot of those pathways. So the current 9th graders and younger, the only CTE pathway that they can get is going to be through Heartland. Currently, we do not have a single one that we offer at our own high school. So we have done a crosswalk of the current pathways for the 10th through 12th graders with the 9th and younger crosswalk pathways to try to see, okay, how can teachers start to work in some of those classes from the new pathway list with our current pathway list, so that when those 9th graders are juniors, but our seniors are on the old list and our juniors are on the new list, we're servicing both of them. And it hasn't been easy because it's going to mean completely new classes for some of these teachers. But that's a big change. Also, another change that we'll have to be looking at is this year is the first year that we've offered ASVAB. Maybe in the past it's been offered a long time ago, but this year it's only for a select group of kids, because that is one of those bucket 3 you can pass if you get a 31, which is the minimum for the Army on the ASVAB. Now, they are not signed up for the military. It's more of a career exploration test. You cannot use it to join the military. It does have the same name though, so we tried to explain to the kids, you know, it has nothing to do with that. It is going to give you careers that you might be interested in, and some of them are going to be military, but it's really just so that you can graduate, really. Another few things, the SAT school day and the ACT school day, those are things in the future we're going to have to look at doing, because you have to provide a way for these kids to take these tests in order to graduate. If they don't go to Heartland, if they don't get an academic honors diploma, then the only way would be for them to take one of these tests. And of course they have to score a certain score on them. But they have to do 3 of those bucket 3 areas, if that makes sense. Down here on the bottom, we had the ISTEP waiver before, and now they're giving us a pathway waiver for if a student doesn't meet any of these. But part of it is that they have to have attempted 3 of these areas down here. And so we've got to try to provide as many as we can, so that those students, if they're not succeeding, they're at least attempting them, so that no matter what, we can at least give them a waiver for that. We already have honors diplomas, dual credit state credentials through Heartland, and then CTE concentrators through Heartland. It'll just be those other 3, more ASVAB testing, SAT school day, and ACT school day. Okay, so some ways that we're getting there. Each month, the counseling departments, we meet from MIS and MES, and here at the junior high and then the high school, we all meet together and we're working on our standards and getting them aligned, so that if one of us left one day, there would be a beautiful program left for whoever steps in their place. So part of this is looking at how, for careers, are we preparing our students. So by the time they get to us, maybe it's a little selfish because we're at the end of this, but by the time they get to us, you know, they're ready to dive into this stuff. At the elementary, most of the teachers, they are doing some sort of career work in their classrooms. They're asking the students, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, they're putting their picture up with, you know, an astronaut head or whatever they're doing. They're having those conversations with the kids. Guidance lessons, we've really talked about more emotional, social learning type areas as they're younger, to prepare them for the career and academic ones as they get older. They do go to Manchester University in the elementary ages. And then 5th grade, that's the first time that they visit Heartland Career Center. And they also go to JA BizTown, where they experience those careers and they run a little town. And then they visit Ball State University. 6th grade, they visit Manchester. And they have a big presentation where they identify off of personality assessments, jobs that might fit them. And then they do some research and they present on whatever that career is. And then currently right now in 7th grade, you guys, last year we worked on the middle school concept and getting that to be more middle school friendly with those classes that we're trying to expose them to. So the wheel classes that now they're taking, the ag, the FACS classes, the science, technology class, robotics, digital applications, student media. So we were trying to get them more exposed to these because we knew graduation pathways was coming, and we knew that, wow, they're gonna have to really know kind of what area they wanna at least look at, and how are they gonna know that if they're not experiencing those things. So we started those wheel classes. Also, this is when we start hitting 21st Century Scholar, which is a lot of college talk. And then they enter kind of the high school realm where we're doing College Go Week activities with them. And then also I know that Mr. Hestine and Mrs. Mobley right now, they're working on trying to create some sort of career day for the students where people from the outside can come in and they can travel around and visit with them. And then 8th grade, this is where all of the students take preparing for college and careers. And in that time, Mrs. Metzger and myself, we will go in for 3 days and we will work with them on high school classes and the different diploma types, the grad pathways, what does that look like? They make a plan over those 3 days. And then in about January, we have a parent meeting where the parents then get a copy of that plan. They get to learn about the diplomas and the pathways and all of that as well, prior to signing up for their classes in high school. Mrs. Du Bois from Heartland Career Center, she also comes in and she talks with them for an entire day, all about every single program over at Heartland. So trying to just set the tone that, hey, this is a great place, you can get dual credits, you can go here, you can graduate by going to Heartland. It's a great place to go, and we're really lucky to have it. It's the last year for 21st Century Scholars, and so again, you know, we talk about the importance of money, that it's not everything, but it sure buys a lot of things that we like. And in order to make money, you've got to have some sort of, I tell them college, but then I explain that it's any training outside of high school. So we're not just pushing Purdue and IU and big four-year colleges, but also training. You've got to get something that the world needs, not just a high school diploma. We've got to get you training. And then PSAT Day, which is coming up here next month. That's a big day for everybody. It's a college and career day where 8th graders, they will be going to, I think it's Ivy Tech and Incipio in Huntington. So a career and also a college. 9th graders, they will go visit Heartland. You're going to talk about that, I'm sorry. So everybody is doing something that day. I won't steal her thunder. And then the only thing for 8th grade that we're working on that likely will have to come to you and get some sort of approval for that is a job shadow day where the 8th graders are actually going out into the community and they are choosing somebody that they want to work with for a day, and then of course they'd have to come back and have activities to follow up with all of that, but something to get them more out in the world and thinking about what they're doing. And then Mrs. Metzger is going to talk about high school.
I wondered how far she was going to go before I stopped her. Okay, so our 9th graders, we take them to Notre Dame, kind of a reach school for a lot of them, but it gives them on a campus that is beautiful, it's gorgeous. We always go in the fall. I think we're scheduled September 20th this year. I went every year, the kids love it, and they get free food. So, and they eat with college kids, so it's really cool. We kind of want them to see, always have that reach school. We always talk to our kids about having that reach school, having the one that you really, that would be okay, that you're okay with, and then maybe like a backup plan that it's really not your favorite, but you'd still be okay going there. So Notre Dame's kind of that reach school for a lot of our kids. We do the Scholar Success Program with our 9th graders. We bring them down to the guidance department and we sit them down, we help them create their accounts, and actually this year we have the lady from 21st Century coming directly to us to help those students. They have to set up an account and do activities every single year. There's 3 activities that they complete, grades 9 through 12. So that's something that we do assist our students with. Our 9th graders on that PSAT day, they get to spend half the day at Manchester University, and then they spend the other half of their day getting the Heartland Career Center tour. This is something that we've done, I think, the last 2 years. This will be our 3rd year doing that. The one great thing about sending our kids, our 9th graders, to Heartland Career Center is we send a group of teachers with them as chaperones. And each year it's a different group of teachers. So we have a lot of teachers who have come back and like, that was great. I had no idea what they did. You know, like we got to see the kids in progress and making things, cooking things. And the teachers have really appreciated being able to go and have the opportunity to see what all of our Heartland students do. With our 9th graders, when we go to schedule them for their 10th grade year, we do spend time with them. I would say in groups 20 to 25, both of us are in the room. We go over what they need for 10th grade. We update their 4-year plan, so they have a copy of their 4-year plan. They have their transcript sitting in front of them, the graduation requirements. We go over everything again, even though we went over extensively in 8th grade, and we just help them pick those classes, what would be best for them. We do College Go Week activities with our 9th graders. They're grade appropriate, and that is always the last full week of September. And then we do invite all of something we started last year with the new pathways and graduation requirements. We started inviting all of our grades 8 through 12 to an evening where we kind of do something close to this. We put up the boxes, we discuss with parents what the pathways looks like, what their child put on their 4-year plan, and the parents actually get a copy of that as well to take home. So we do invite the upper level grades just because so much has changed. It's not the same as it was when they had an older student that maybe graduated or maybe when they were in high school. In 10th grade, we do a PSAT day. So the kids are all tested, which will be October 16th this year. All 10th grade is tested. Then we do a follow-up when we get their scores. They're all called down. Their scores are interpreted. We tell them how to interpret those, good, bad, the other, ugly, yes. So when they walk away, they don't just have a sheet of paper. They understand what those scores mean. We also have a grade-appropriate College Go Week activities for them that we do. And when they are choosing their 11th grade classes, they look at that 4-year plan. Again, they get a copy of their transcript. But really, this is when a lot of things start to change for them. This is when they can go to Heartland half days. This is when, how are we going to fit everything in? Have you passed all your classes? And then we hand out all those Heartland career applications on the same day because we do have so many spots. We assist them with their Scholar Success Program, which is, again, the 21st Century Program. We invite the parents to that graduation pathway meeting. And this is the first year as 10th graders that students can take an AP class. Their Human Geography AP class is offered to our 10th grade students. So it's kind of their first toe in the water for an AP class. Our 11th graders take the PSAT. I'm going to skip the first one here. They take the PSAT along with our 10th graders. They're all tested on the same day. And then they get the same follow-up that the sophomores get as well. So we still go over those scores, even though they got in the year before and they feel like they know maybe what they're reading and looking at. We do go over that again with them. Our 11th graders do get 2 college and career visits. These do not count against their attendance. This is something that we push them to do. Because we want them to get out there and really see is the college that they're thinking they want to go to really a good fit for them. They again have College Go Week activities that are different from every other grade level. And then when they go to choose their classes for 12th grade, they get that 4-year plan, they get that graduation requirements, they get their scheduling sheet, and really taking that time, checking off, am I going to have everything? Do I have everything on the sheet that I need for graduation? That's when we kind of see the anxiety a little bit from the kids to make sure that they do have everything. We review the Heartland stuff with the kids because a lot of times we have students who maybe didn't go their junior year or maybe they couldn't go their junior year and they want to go just as a senior, which is fine. So that is something that we do have with some students that decide to do. As an 11th grader, a lot of our kids have a lot of opportunities to take AP classes, like the biology AP, I'm trying to think of all of them now. Some of them as juniors are in calculus, but we have a lot of dual credit classes too, so a lot of our kids are earning dual credits as juniors. And then
In the spring, we go into 11th grade, or talk to our 11th graders, and we really kind of do like a mini lesson on college prep. So we kind of go in and kind of try to prep them for their senior year. I don't know how well it always works, but we go over, like, you need to sign up for the SAT or the ACT. You need to start thinking about the colleges you want to apply to. Is there anywhere you want to visit over the summer? Set up your Parchment account so you can get your transcripts sent directly electronically, which is how colleges require it to be done. Start those college applications August 1st. So we try to get them kind of prepped for what's coming, because what we find out is when they become a senior, it just all hits them all at once. We're hitting them with college stuff. Classes started, it's their senior year. Some of them start day one with senioritis. So we kind of try to get them pumped up as a junior a little bit. Our seniors do get a college and career visit day on PSAT day. So they all go out into the community and they have some different options. They can go with Mr. Z, our English 12 teacher, to Ivy Tech is where he's going this year in Warsaw. They can do a job shadow, or they can do a college visit. And we have some kids who are like, I love my Heartland program. I just want to go to Heartland and spend my time at Heartland. We allow them to do that as well, to get on the bus, head down there. They can spend all day if they get approval from Heartland to do that, or if they just want to do their afternoon program like a normal day for them, then they do that. That day does not count against their attendance. It's more like field trip day, I guess. And then they do get 2 additional college and career visits. So they can job shadow or they can do a college visit, and those do not count. So really our seniors are getting 3 and our juniors are getting 2 of those days. We do spend a significant amount of time with our 12th graders. We go into the classroom and we talk about FAFSA, FSAID, scholarship. We have a Google Doc that we keep updated that we email out to the seniors constantly, telling them to check their email. We give them a senior brag sheet, and the brag sheet is all about them. So what we tell them is, we want to write you a glowing letter of recommendation, or anybody that you ask. But sometimes we know this much, like we don't know that you had the champion in 4-H, or we don't know that you went on a mission trip with your church to Jamaica, or we don't know, like there's some things maybe we just don't know. So that kind of helps us fill in those blanks and write that glowing letter of recommendation. And we share those. If a student asks us for a copy of that, we will make a copy and they can hand them out to teachers, pastors, whoever they need a letter of recommendation from. We also, in addition to doing that, we usually do the big lesson first, and then we bring down our seniors one by one. We meet with our seniors individually, each one of them. Mrs. Wise finished hers today. I think I've got like 3 left. And we actually have a sheet that goes through the checklist for them. Have you done the SAT? Did you pass I-STEP, or do you have a pathway? Here's a copy of your transcript. Here's the diploma you're planning on getting. Here's what you have to pass for graduation. Have you signed up for the FSAID? Does your parent have an FSAID? The FAFSA, when is that coming out? When are people coming to talk? So it is like a checklist that we give the kids, and we walk them through every single step of that. We try to get a feel for where they're going, what they want to do, and what they want to study. If they're going into the military, or where maybe they want to go into the workforce, give them some ideas along that road as well. A lot of our students, we remind them to send their AP scores have to be sent through College Board to the college that they choose to attend. So if they are going to a public college, a 3 or higher, they can get college credit. If it's a private university, they can set their own standards for that. So they may not take the 3, but they may take the 4 or the 5. And then we have so many dual credit classes through Ivy Tech, Trine, and PFW. So reminding the students of, hey, you took this as dual credit, and it may be on your transcript, but the college is not going to accept that. You have to contact Trine, and you have to get your transcript as a college student sent to Ball State, because that's where you're going next year. So we walk them through all of that. Mr. Z does a really good job in helping us out. A lot of times he does resumes, and a lot of times those are done and they're in the process when we go in to talk to kids. So when they're filling out that senior brag sheet, it just makes things so much easier for them. And a lot of times they'll just attach it to, like, they'll fill out what maybe wasn't on the brag sheet, but then they will attach the resume to give us additional information. I know he does a lot of volunteer opportunities through sharing and caring, and then he does real life job interviews, which I think are great skills that our students need to walk out of here with. The one great thing about Heartland for us is parent tours. We know we just have to call and we ask, and they say yes always. So we have had parents go up and tour the building. We have had students who maybe they don't know what they want to do, or they're really interested in 2 different programs. we just call Heartland and we say, hey, we've got this 10th grader, they're not sure what they want to do. Before Heartland Career Apps come out, can we send them up on the bus and you get them in this class half the day, in this class in the other half a day, and they will do that for us, and the kids come back and know what they want to do. They're like, that one wasn't for me. So like that gives them an eye-opening experience. We always do announcements with openings. We send out emails of deadlines, how many openings we have, when they need to apply, all of those sorts of things. And obviously the graduation pathways that Mrs. Wise went over always include Heartland Career Center, especially for those 9th graders on down. Our marketing students right now, I just talked with them yesterday, they are working on a marketing thing, but they are going to come up with some way to market our electives, which will include the Heartland classes. So I asked them what that was going to look like, and they said, we don't know yet. And I said, okay, that's fine. So they just came and got some information from me yesterday. So they are working on that currently through that marketing class. And then last year, something we started was we had Lori Du Bois come. She spoke with our 8th graders. She spent a day in the PCC classes with those kids and like talked about each individual program. But she also came to our parent-teacher conferences to just kind of share, to be there if the parents had questions, if kids had questions, and just be that face of Heartland for us and represent us those 2 evenings. I guess, does anybody have any questions?
She'll be back this year too.
Yes, we're planning on her being back, yeah.
Do you have questions about? Sure, I know you hate. Mrs. Metzger loves a microphone, so I'll just take it from her. Do you guys have questions about the pathways and how that works, or how our kids are getting that, or questions about Heartland, or suggestions for things that you think we could add in?
Well, where does our business community come in?
Well, work-based learning, our business classes.
But I mean, do they come here and do we have them involved in any presentations or job fair or?
No,
or
not the.
do they send speakers in at any time with the kids, like an engineer
I mean,
with
our
a?
JAG class has a lot of speakers that come in.
Okay.
And of course, our students will go out. But as far as businesses calling us and saying, hey, we want to come in and talk to your students, we've had a few orthopedic, junior achievement. We've had conversations with them with some of the orthopedics type jobs where kids were called down during SRT and we talked to them about it. We've had some people come in for like lunch visits. From Ivy Tech, the orthopedic plant there, Tom Till, you know, he's come in with all of his gadgets. But as far as people lining up to, you know, from businesses to come in and talk to kids. Yeah, Mrs. Leifer through work-based learning, she definitely, I mean, she goes out and meets with a lot of businesses because she's got to make those connections in order to get those kids placed in internships.
Always looking.
Yeah.
Well, I know when it's developing, right? And what I see is like going from push to pull in education, basically, where these companies want us to fill their pipeline. They're hurting, right? They want workers. Then we kind of start these guys out, so it's starting to come together here. My question's like, when are these, you know, so I just had a class with 30 of them, right? And they're like, you ought to, you know, that sounds cool. You ought to have us do this or you have us do that. Well, saying it and do it's one other thing, but you know, somewhere we're going to tie this thing together where, you know, there's those opportunities in these kids, and I love what Rose said, right? It's all about keeping my grandkids close to me, you know, so.
So, I mean, again, it's this one-to-one stuff. What's happening right now is literally to get certified the way it's coming, kids have to know by their sophomore January part of that year. Think about it. They've only been in high school for a year and a half. We start signing up kids for their junior class schedule the January of their sophomore year. I mean, that's a dropping off point. Some of these kids I'm still four-year college, Dr. Libby. Like, I'm going to college. And you know what? We've all done that. Like my kids, a lot of your kids, four-year college. That's what they're thinking. Four-year college, until what? Reality hits. And when does that usually hit? Sometimes senior year. And these kids find out about December. Gosh, it's not, and Austin, perfect example, Austin, okay? And I mean, Noah, right? I mean, Noah's the same way, Noah Shoemaker. These kids, we don't know for sure. And we're all about them trying to achieve that dream, right? Like, get behind them. What do you want to do? You want to be four-year college, let's go get it. If it doesn't happen, then what do we do? Well, then I start picking up the phone, and here's kind of what, just down the list. Andrew Cagle, pre-med tech. Bryce Patrick, pre-med tech. These guys did not know in their senior year what they're going to do, and this is what we plugged them into. John Cisco, IMD, up here in Warsaw. Noah Shoemaker. Okay, Noah came to me 2 weeks ago and said, Dr. Lippy, I'm hearing about this in Scipio down here in Huntington. And it happens just like that. And these guys are talking to students like, hey, Dr. Lippy, we got a student here, they're kind of looking for something. And so we got a hold of Incipio for Noah. And so I don't know if they've reached out to him yet. I know that we've given their contact information. They've kind of been running behind. I think Kyle Shepard just graduated last year in May, right? And Kyle came to me. I said, come back and see me, guys. If the dream doesn't work out, you got to come see me. So right now I've got about 20 guys. Hopefully get some girls. I told these guys try to get me some girls this way too. And I got one in mind. Erica Yard might be coming down this road for me. Lillian's down the road. I know Lillian will come see me too one of these years. And we got to start getting these girls plugged in this, because you walk into Paragon, you walk into pre-med tech, you come up to Warsaw, 40% of those people out there are girls, right? I mean, and we know some of our females are going to land. And I know that we lost one of our patrons here. She's in machining. Can't think of her name right now. Just left us. But so just going down the list. Dylan Brubaker, IMD. Hunter Klutz, IMD. Hunter Sparks, Paragon. Hunter Miller just landed at IMD. Delton Moore is over here at Hipshire. Not medical device, but he's kind of dipping his toe into machining. Was at Heartland last year. Austin Underwood, now pre-med tech. Juan Ramirez, who was at Heartland last year, just landed a job at Ford Meter Box. And I got these kids coming. So you got Noah Shoemaker with Incipio, Kyle Shepard. I know that they've talked to Kyle. They're going to be interviewing him this week at Incipio. Brody Freitas, he heard what Kyle was doing. Brody Freitas was a May graduate. He just got plugged in at IMD. I just talked to Todd Spiker and his wife, Terry. They're going to give him an interview this week. Kevin Morales, they're kind of reaching out to see where Kevin might fit at IMD. Justice Metzger. Okay, so his dad, John, I believe. So you got the word 2 weeks ago about how we got this partnership now with Zimmer and Biomet. That's his dad, because he heard of this stuff we were talking about. He's got his people above him. And Zimmer, I mean, that's a big boy, right? Zimmer, Biomet. 350 openings alone. Now, right now, those guys are looking for certified people. That's like the 4-star. I mean, there's just not a lot of kids certified, because what do they have to know? By the time they're January sophomore year. But these kids are landing. You look at Austin. Austin worked a little bit with what, in one class of yours? Just one class. And here he is, they're working him on a Swiss machine, for goodness sake. I mean, he's only been there for a few months. Drake Hatfield and Bryce Campus, Chase Miller, all football players. Right after football season, we're going to get them plugged in. Where? Incipio, pre-med tech, Paragon, IMD, one of those three. Maybe Zimmer. But again, Zimmer right now is holding out for certified. They're looking for those kids with, and I don't blame them. And they can kind of demand that, because they're the big boys on the block. So we're excited. I mean, leaving no stone unturned. We are growing. I love the fact that these gals are sending people my way. Yeah, we're not HR people, but I love this stuff. There's a passion for me. And I know, maybe down the line we'll have one of Ruth's kids. Corbin, I'm not sure what Corbin's going to do. Carter might end up being an engineer. I mean, they're coming. But we've got fallback plans, which end up almost better than plan A as these kids come through. So if you got, when your kids get to me, let me know.
Well, thank you.
Well, I think the point is it's not mutually exclusive, right? In other words, you look at these employers around the area, I guess what I'm looking for is building that final bridge there where we're looking at our curriculum and what they want and developing some type of business educational consortium, you know, for the school system with the local businesses or something like that, where you know exactly what they want, and these kids are rolling through there. I don't care if they go to college or not, freaking let the workplace pay for their college. I mean, every parent's gotta be happy with that. I know I will be, you know, if it happens, so. I know there's a lot of activity.
Before we end this segment, I just want to tell you how proud I am of these two and our entire council department. They picked up pathways on the fly. Now, of course, the whole state would kind of, but I came to them like, what was it, September, October? I said, guys, I think we should do this. And I think they looked at me like I was crazy because we know all the stuff that goes into it. And it was dramatically different than the last. And you know what they did? Absolutely. That's all they said, absolutely, we'll do it because it's the right thing to do for kids. They put this entire presentation, I had to go do all this research. I am so proud of the work that they do, and I hope you see how hard they work and how awesome they are for kids. So I appreciate it. So I don't know if you have any other questions, but you feel
We
those.
all do.
Well, thank you so much.
I've got just a little comment, Dr. Lippy. I mean, I think it's great when you can match these kids up with some of these corporations around here, and I sympathize with you that, yes, you guys aren't HR people. And I hear a lot of the same company names that you keep saying again and again, and that's awesome, and that you've got that relationship. If there's a way to connect with some more companies, because literally, I mean, that's such a tiny fragment of the companies right around here that need people. Yeah, there's so many, I know, but they're not going to necessarily come to you. So, yeah, but I mean, there's so many.
And I'll throw out that through our work-based learning, you know, with Mrs. Leifer, we have had people at the daycare, at the vet clinic, at the police station, the Y. I mean, they're really just Peabody. Oh yeah, they're really all over the place. I know, you know, he's got this passion for, you know, the precision machining area. And so those were all the kind of names that he was listing off, but our kids are really going everywhere.
Good.
And when it comes to Heartland, you know, I don't know if you guys know that we have, you know, there's 6 schools that send kids to Heartland, and you only get so many spots. And once those are filled, say we get 5 spots in our entrepreneurship program. Once those are filled, we can't put any more kids in there. So our programs like precision machining and welding in the entrepreneurship class, criminal justice, we have waiting lists for those. The kids, they want to be in those, hence the work-based learning. We have about 35 kids in there this year. That would have been the entrepreneurship class. They couldn't have taken us all. So the kids, we don't fill all of our spots at Heartland, which hurts. We would like to fill all of our spots. There's either a waiting list or like 2 people want in those. But I'll tell you that of the 6 schools, 5 of the schools don't fill their spots. And sometimes it's hard to get those kids so early on thinking, oh yeah, this is something that I want to do. So we're always trying to think of ways to not just use it as, hey, you can graduate with this, but you know, this gives you some sort of training to where if you decided you didn't want to go to college, this is college. You know, the cosmetology kids, it costs $400 to get their license at Heartland. If they graduated from high school and they went to a cosmetology school, it costs $18,000, and it's the same license. So we have all those conversations with the kids. It's just when they're that young, sometimes they're not thinking, they're not there yet. You know, they're not thinking, I need to make a business connection and go out and work with them because they still think I'm a kid. So we struggle with that too, of trying to get them to, hey, you're almost 18, you're almost out in the world, we got to get you something.
I just want to recognize Aaron Hooks too is here tonight, and he's really kind of helped. You know, Bryce, we talked about this partnership, 5 years ago, this orthopedic pathway and advanced manufacturing. And when Aaron came on board, he was all about it. And I'll be honest with you, he was the motivation for me to really get going because he had these relationships built with a lot of these people already and really helped me because I didn't. I mean, my wife worked at Depew, but I don't know people like he did. So Aaron, I appreciate you being here, and he does a great job with those kids that he gets. It doesn't have large numbers, but I'm telling you, just gives our kids another opportunity. If they don't go to Heartland, we've got a couple ways to plug them in back here. But again, yeah, any of these businesses around here, a lot of our kids are in the ag industry. They just are, moms and dads. They want to be part of that family farm. And all these opportunities that we're talking about feed right into that. Austin's going to end up working on the beef farm along with maybe something in advanced manufacturing. I think he's kind of like the poster child. But I got a lot of those FFA kids, the ag kids, that are really expressing interest because those companies want those kids. In fact, my cousin who owns Incipio says, like, if it's a farm kid, when they walk in here, I'm hiring them because of the blue collar work ethic. So, and that's kind of who we are. I mean, that's probably one of our biggest demographics. So, thank you for allowing us to speak with you.
Thank you for your time. All right, and then we have a Heartland update from Mr. Turflinger.
Well, I had no idea this was going to flow in so well, but it's going to. And I was going to talk about the whole thing, but I'm just going to talk about the precision machining. Manchester has 9 kids involved in it this year, and precision machining has 39 altogether. And we are down from 78 kids last year to 65, but with the wonderful stuff I just heard, maybe that's why our numbers are down a little bit. I don't know. But I got to take a tour with the Heartland Career Board of Zimmer. And it's unfortunate, Dr. Lippy, that you weren't with us, because I have a little news here that maybe you folks haven't been privy to yet, but I'm pretty proud to be able to announce it. Dr. Lippy mentioned in a previous meeting that Zimmer Biomed of Warsaw had reached out to MCS about internships and a co-op program for students. And that connections produced some pretty exciting news for the HCC students in precision machining. Zimmer's HR people are going to be at Heartland tomorrow at 10:30 and at 12:30 to talk to the morning and the afternoon classes. Scroll up here a little bit. I'm reading this in the. They're going to talk to them tomorrow, and they're going to start the hiring process of up to 4 students next week in a project-based pathway to graduation, hopefully to be in place by October 15th this year. These are going to be paid positions that could lead to permanent employment after graduation. Zimmer's willing to work around the student athletes' schedules. I've shared with the board and Dr. Grimeau the student requirements for consideration for these precision machining students. Zimmer hopes to have 20 students in the program every year. This is, they're getting their feet off the ground this year. They have agreed to pay for the HCC precision machining students' NIMS certifications that the state no longer pays for. Their HR people shared some of the benefits with the people on the tour that are offered to their permanent employees, one of which is up to $10,000 per year in educational assistance if they get hired permanently. They have very competitive wages, outstanding benefits, and the Zimmer people and their other employers in our area who are reaching out to HCC and to Manchester Community Schools for these internships and co-op opportunities are great partners and very much appreciated. The Meet the Instructor Night at Heartland Career Center is September 18th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And Mike December from Zimmer, he's one of the HR people. He will be there talking to attendees in the precision machining classroom. And Zimmer's partnered with the Advanced Manufacturing Facility at Ivy Tech in Warsaw. The students will be able to use their promised scholarship dollars and their Zimmer educational assistant to get degrees and jobs. Hang on here. Come on. New device here. Okay, and the human resources people have offered to put on a presentation here in North Manchester for future potential HCC students. They would like to explain their needs in the next 4 to 7 years in person. It was explained to our tour group why they have reached out to our community, and Dr. Lippy already covered part of this. It's because so many of their employees live here. In closing, our people here, there's a lot of hardworking people who make these things happen in our district, and there's too many to name individually, but they are truly appreciated. And I would like to remind everyone that Mark Hobbs and Lori Du Bois will be here next month with another new exciting presentation on another new opportunity for Heartland career students. Now, this is off the cuff here. I received an email, I think I sent it out to everybody. Zimmer is 98 people short right now in manufacturing and in their precision areas, so maybe we need to have you folks get a hold of them. Maybe there's a couple more, because the criteria, Zimmer's lowered their criteria. For precision machining, they only have to be 17 and have their own transportation. So they've kind of changed that from some of the others we talked to. They wanted them to be 18, but if they're hurting this bad, there may be some more opportunities there, and I'd really like to thank all of you for your hard work. It's truly appreciated. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Turflinger. Now it's hearing of the patrons, which is public comment. Is there any public comment? Okay, then superintendent comments?
Absolutely. Just want to echo again the thank you for all the donations that just really help support our schools. Also would like to invite anyone, we have a work session coming up on September 24th at 5:30. And the board will be working on the beginning of the strategic plan. They've already developed the mission, the vision, and some commitment statements along with the cabinet. And we will be working on the next step, which is starting with a profile of a graduate. But I will be releasing that night to anyone who attends how we are going to get there and what that process looks like. So would love to see a lot of community people here. They will be able to give some input on it starting at that time before we turn it over to the schools. So please send that information to your friends and invite anyone that you would like, and we will be sending out announcements for that as well. And the board, I'm just asking if you have any input on the packet that you were sent this time around, if that's something that you like, the layout, or if you had any other suggestions, just see me. You don't have to tell me now, but see me afterwards. I'd really appreciate some feedback on that. And that's it.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board?
Just one quick one. Mr. Hensley and I attended the Community Foundation, was it Wabash Promise Lake? Is that the name of it?
It's the Lily, imagine Wabash County.
Yeah. I stopped and picked up those books for all the board members as we do our strategic planning. There's some information in there that I think will be helpful, and there's some information in there that's going to scare you. But it was a lot of good information, so I thought I would stop. They had some extras. I picked them up for all the board members. Just take a look at it.
And they should augment that, because one of the things they didn't do is they, we spent a lot of money on these, it's a good thing, but they didn't regress the data as far as like tying the inputs in the community into population growth and stuff like that. So I think they're gonna kind of address that and look for interactions and things like that, but there is some good information in there, so. And I think, Patty, they're doing a good job, so.
And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.